Hello and welcome back to my channel. Here we have the characters. They have just completed their first adventure in the Lost Palace of Dunmona. We find them at the end of day 4 back in the Green Dragon Inn. They've had a nice warm bath that Fredica's kindly arranged for them to have. They've come down, they're enjoying their meal. Rowena's warming up with her harp. She's been doing some local dancing to get the crowd going. Everyone's in fine spirits. I think we can take this juncture, maybe just to kind of come out of the characters' heads, back to the bread and butter of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of the reasons we do all this adventuring, and that is the treasure and the experience. So in my my folder, I have now got a section called Experience Summary. And the experience summary also, by maintaining this, it's actually quite a good way of keeping track of all like your opponents that you have defeated, and just to get an idea. So for this first adventure in the experience summary, we defeated the spider. That was our first confrontation, which was quite a combat really. Lindris came out on top. He was quite exceptional in that combat. Then we had our combat with the Shrieker, a bit one-sided, but it still required quite considerable effort on the part of the characters to deal with the Shrieker. And the fact that the main thing about the Shrieker was they had to silence it and do it quickly. And they dispatched the Shrieker, and then they had their encounter with the fire beetles, the 3 fire beetles, and again that was probably their closest to coming to a bit of a mini disaster, having the mortality of Dagobert put under question when he was faced with what seemed like a 50-50 role for the fire beetle to strike it with his mandibles, and then there would be a good chance that he would go below 0 hit points. Now I know you can go down to -3 and survive, but even still he would have been completely incapacitated, and then we would have had to try to carry him or help him limp from the dungeon, which would have been a bit of a disaster. So I've gone away and I've used the tables in the Dungeon Master's Guide, which are I'm trying to remember where they are. Here we are. And you get these things based on the level of the monster, how many hit dice it's got. It gives it a basic XP, and then you get an XP per hit point. So I've just translated the monsters here. So the spider had 8 hit points, and it was a 2+2 hit die monster. The Shrieker had 10 hit points, and it was a 3 hit die monster. The fire beetles, 3 of them, they had 21 hit points. They were 1+2 hit dice monsters. Calculated the basic based on numbers. Calculated the XP per hit point. So you can see that some monsters are a bit more, you get more based on the size per hit point. And then any specials and exceptionals. Now the definition of exceptionals is things like energy, level drain, paralysis, poison. So that refers to the spiders. The spider had a poison, so that I classify that as exceptional. And special was the noise defense. So the Shrieker had a noise defense. So in total, we got the grand sum of that was 200. That was 114. I should have done a little subtotal. 114 plus 80 plus 102 equals. So we got 296 experience, and then we got 250 from the treasure that we brought out, which was the 250 gold pieces. Now be minded that there's still treasure in the dungeon that we had to leave in that effectively, you know, air quotes, strong room, the secret chamber, or well, it's protected by a secret door, and that's under wraps just now. So we just don't know whether that will be discovered by another party. So that would be divided by 3, so we would all get 182 XP each. Way. But you know, steady accumulation is what we want in this party. The next thing is just to square our finances, and again I've just got a summary sheet. So we have agreed to pool all our gold. So Tristan had 85, Dagobert had 23, and Lindris had the princely sum of 104. So that gave us 212 in total. We did do some subsequent purchases when we came back at the end of day 3 to equip ourselves with the right type of implements that we would need to take on the spider. And that we've added in the deposit we've given to Fredegar of 15, that brings us down to 192 all in. So with the 250, you know, that's well over, you know, that's a good amount of money that we've got to finance this 300 in total, less the 15 already, that we need for our first month. So I would say that we are in a kind of like almost like a net profit situation. It's pretty break-even venture just now, but we are just keeping our head above water so we can have this grand lifestyle for another how many days? We're up to day 4. In fact, that should be the next thing I fill out. And the other thing is I will update my journal to give a kind of brief summary of each day in the dungeon. Although sometimes you don't really need to go into as much detail in your journal for the days that you are venturing out in the actual field, because things like XP, the XP summary and all that good stuff, that kind of is your own summary anyhow. So we've got Fredegar, just to give us, we're up to day 4. So what we did is on Wednesday we went adventuring in Dunmorna, and the weather was fine. And on Thursday we did adventuring Dunmorna, and the weather was fine. Now, if there's any other pertinent details, I'll put it in, but basically all we did was go out. That was a reconnaissance phase on day 3. We didn't really, we came across sturges. We didn't have a combat with them. We had a lucky escape from the spider. Lindris managed to do his whole portal. But then we came up with a strategy to deal with the monsters. We came back the next day. We dealt with the spider. We found a shrieker. We dealt with that. We found those fire beetles. We dealt with them. We found 250 gold pieces. So that is in summary, and that is probably going to be encapsulated in some of the other schedules. So I could give like a very brief synopsis, but I think I'd rather keep this diary really for like key things. So that's our diary updated. So I'll slot that back in our, and as you see, we're starting to build up quite a file of information. You know, some of it is a bit scrappy. You know, that's our famous diagram of how to get to the dungeon. So where did I get it? I just got it from here. So I'll put our counter back in here. Right. So the characters are back in the Green Dragon. They're having a nice evening. Now, they did at the end of that that session on in the dungeon. We did have an encounter with what I've now called Party B. Now, Party B is made up of. Just find my. Yeah, hide my notes. All my post-it notes I put away over here. Reach. I should be a bit more organised for these things. I've actually got a bit of a stiff neck just now. I've got a bit of an injury in the pool. I must have strained a muscle. With these old bones, that's what happens. You tend to strain muscles. Okay, so this was our NPC party that we came across, which was composed of Balder, who we'd already run up against in the Green Dragon in previously, and we'd had a kind of neutral interaction with Malor, the druid, who we hadn't interacted with, but he was an NPC that we'd kind of generated. There was a magic user, there was a cleric, and then we generated another cleric because I forgot to add in another, because I generated 4 on a D4. I should have added 1 to that to generate a overall party of 5. And I did notice that when I was looking at the footage again, I rolled an 18, and for those with eagle eyes, laser eyes, I for some reason and I'll be able to show you with this this little mini table that I used for the characters. Yeah, an 18 was actually not cleric, but it was a druid, and we're allowed a maximum of 2 per party. So not a cleric, it's not cleric 2, it's druid 2. So we've got a druid instead. So that's an interesting party, isn't it? A half-elf fighter thief, a human male druid, a magic user to be determined, a cleric 1 or cleric to be determined, and a druid to be determined. So I think, and this is an interesting development in itself. We had it's not your standard encounter, because this could be used as an NPC party, and it also has the potential to become Party B, and we could draw on this as a pool of characters that potentially we could our party, let's call our party Party A. We could draw on these NPC characters in our adventures. And I was thinking, well, when they were getting on quite well in that room, and they were explaining all, Lindris was showing them elements of his map, and Dagobert was waxing on about, well, you go down this corridor and you come down here and you go through here and blah 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 blah, and this is where the storages are, and why don't you keep over to this side, because we haven't really explored it that much, and kind of veer them off to that. We were building a bit of a rapport with this party, but I think one of the things that Dagobert and Tristan and also Lindris managed to pick up was they sensed an element of unease in this party, and almost like dissension. So there was a few kind of snappy interactions between, particularly emanated between Baldur, who we realized was the kind of self-imposed leader of this group, and some of the other NPC characters, and they didn't really seem to be like 100% gelled unit. So on the way back from the the Lost Palace, the characters, as they were moving through the gentle hills and up the military road, they were talking about the party that they'd encountered, and how they 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 feel that this might be an opportunity to maybe well, first of all, they wanted to confirm each other's kind of observations, and they all agreed that they'd felt a sense of unease and dissension. Um, and then they all agreed that they would quite like to maybe see whether there's a potential for recruitment and get their party up to a higher strength. Because they feel that maybe three isn't quite enough to do everything that is required. They feel that if they had either four or five, they would feel like quite a strong unit to go into other places of mystery and deal with maybe multiple opponents. You know, there is the downside that the more we have, the higher the cap is. But they're not thinking in those terms. They're thinking very much, you know, what can we do to improve our chances of success and help with our objectives, which is basically to go into dungeons and effectively strip mine these dungeons for all that we can get, and get out quick without any form of casualty or or wound or anything. And the way we can guarantee that is to have sufficient numbers and sufficient strength and depth that we can play our A team all the time. So I think there's a kind of meeting of minds that they think, well, I wonder how that party gets on. And later on that evening in the Green Dragon, they see the other party arrive and they're greeted by Fredegar, and they all look quite dishevelled and out of sorts, and like they've had a really hard day, and they're all covered in soot and whatever. You know, our characters were in a similar situation. They were all grimy and dirty and whatever, but they had a look of almost like elation, because they felt buoyed by their successes. You know, fair enough, they hadn't claimed massive amounts of treasure, but they had on an individual combat basis, they'd had quite a few little mini triumphs. But this party looks quite dejected. They look they don't look 100% gelled unit. There's cracks appearing. So the characters think, well, okay, let's just stay down here. We'll enjoy Rowena. This is fantastic entertainment. We're really having a nice time. But let's see if we can interact with these people and find out more about what this party is all about and what these people are, what their background is, and who, you know, what we don't even know their names really. Or if we do know their names, it's kind of gone in the haze of the overall conversation, because that was focused on the adventure in the moment. So I think I'd quite like to just, because this is going to be thrown up as a kind of like a B team, I'd quite like to just take this opportunity to maybe generate some details around these people. So we can go back to the way that we generated our first characters. I'm not planning to maybe go into like the nth level of detail just now, but it'd be quite nice to just maybe get the headline information about them, and just kind of remind ourselves of what we used to do when we were generating a character party in like one of our first, if you go back to one of the first videos where I had all that music playing. Try to delete some of that, but you end up it's funny when you've got the YouTube thing, and you know, I was looking at, I think the first 5 or 6 of my videos have got this backing music on, and it's at various, I think the ones with the Lord of the Rings stuff is actually not too bad, but it's still sometimes it's a bit kind of abrasive. It's the other ones that's got like more modern instrumental music. And I did have a shot at, you can actually take the track off. However, the downside is, you know, fair enough, you get rid of the background music, but it makes you sound slightly as if you are down, you're underwater. It's got that kind of, it must take some of the background kind of part of your voice. You know, just like my voices can go quite deep at times, and it seems to take away some of the tenor of the voice. I suppose it's a bit like bass and treble and all that sort of thing. It's kind of sucked out some of the overall kind of range of the voice. So my voice sounds a bit kind of like, as I say, I'm a wee bit as if I'm at the bottom of the sea type thing. But it's toss. You know, I learned my lesson after maybe about the sixth or seventh, and I thought this isn't working. This thing, and you know, I didn't really need it anymore. I just decided, all right, let's just do the videos as they are, and not really go for any kind of music. You know, you could be having music playing, your own music playing while you watch this. You know, maybe, yeah, that's, you know, that would be my recommendation. If you want to listen to Lord of the Rings while you're watching this, you know, do it. Or any other instrumental thing. Right, I don't know why I got all the way onto that, but it was. I think maybe it's just been at the back of my mind, this thing about the music and stuff. And I think if I was going to do my videos again, I wouldn't have had it on, or if I had it on, I would have been much lower volume. Probably half the volume at least. Okay, so who have we got in the party? So we've got this little scrappy sheet. However, we don't need to do Balder and Malor the Druid yet. Is that definitely called Malor? I had a little note. I think it's Balder Bloodaxe, which sounds a rather intimidating little. Yeah, Baldur Blood Fist. So we've got the leader, Baldur Bloodfist. And what do we know about him? He's a half-elf, and he's a fighter thief. Okay. And his personality, his trait was barbaric, which isn't a good start. And remember, he had all the foul stuff as well, and his personality was modest. And then we've got a second is Malor. Yeah, it is Malor, Pathfinder, which is a great name. It's a good name for a ranger, actually, isn't it? Pathfinder, and he's a druid. He's a human, and he's a druid. And his trait is friendly and kind, which is very nice. And his personality was a bit aloof. So he's a wee bit detached from the world, maybe. Maybe he's on a higher plane. Yes, that kind of thing. We've got in our group that we haven't discovered, we've got this a magic user. All we know is, right, we'll put these as having a bit more space. We've got a magic user. Let's get my little dice tray out of the way because it's cramping my style. We've got a cleric, and we've got another druid. So 5 in total, and these 3 NPCs we haven't determined. So according to our checklist, yes, we use the table, the Dungeon Master Guide tables 175 to 176. There will be a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 5 level 1 characters. Done that. We use the 4d6 method with the minimums and necessary abilities guaranteed with the option of using the stats generator. Well, we won't generate these stats just now. If we have time, let's see, but let's just go with probably the more pertinent details. Not more than 50% of the party can be the same class. Now, the only duplication of class we've got is Druid, and we don't have more than 50. We've got less than 50%. Race determined. Oh, this is the important bit. Determine the sex of the character with 25% of adventurers being female. Okay, I think this is probably the first thing that we can do is actually, because you will notice that we haven't really had any, apart from Martha, we haven't really had any female characters at all yet, which is a bit of a disappointment, because I was expecting a bit more, just a bit more diversity in the actual, not that I'm after quotas or anything. I think it would be more interesting in interactions if you had that perspective. How much fun we had with the Fredegar, Martha kind of dynamic, the husband and wife thing. And I get a feeling that that's another dimension that you can have in the role playing, because when you think about it, I'm obviously a male, and when I used to play characters back in the day, they were always male. They were always male, and you would think, oh, I could probably play a female, but I never did, and none of my gaming group ever did either, because why would we? Just didn't think that way. Whereas now, if I was going to play a game, I think I'd be quite interested in playing a female character and just seeing it from their perspective. I know, I play Zombicide quite a lot with my brother-in-law. He loves this Zombicide. He's got all the different expansions, and I just go for all the female characters and just play them, because I think, well, I've never really played female characters before. Let's just see what it's like, and I have a blast. So I'd quite like to inject this type of thing, this other dynamic in it, and that's what solo role playing is all about. Just your chance to do these things. So where was I? Yes, I was trying to determine whether we've got any female characters. So I would say let's do our 25% and see whether we get a female. And again, I've got every single dice known to mankind in my... I think I've been using this as a bit of a store, my dice tray. It's got all my other dice in it. So, just as a reminder, the blue dice is the tens, and the red dice is the units. So, our magic user is a female. We've got our first lady. Yes. Proof, 20%. So, we can put, in fact, I haven't even got a male bit here. I've got, right, male, female. Okay. Let's see if our cleric is a female. 43, no, cleric's a man. And the druid, female? No. So we have a female, a magic user. Okay. So that's our first definition. Determine the sex of the character, yeah. Race determined as 20% of characters being demi-human per the section and table on page 176. Apart from assassins and thieves, which use the followers table on page 16 to 17. Now, you will recall that we did that for Tristan, I think, and that's why it kind of generated a half-elf. But we don't have any assassins and thieves in this party, so we'll just use the... first of all, we've got to determine whether we have a demi-human in the first place, so that's 20%. So is our female magic user a demi-human? Is she like an elf? Or it's not going to be a dwarf or anything. So see, that's the other thing. You are limited because the class determines things. That automatically kind of locks in all your options, and everything kind of closes down because of the class, which is quite a nice system. So it's very important which order you go in. So we always go class first, and then things like sex and race as being kind of what can we do with those classes. So 67, she's a human. Human. And cleric is a human. And the druid. Yeah. Now I made the mistake last time. I was saying, Mala he's a human. He can't be anything else. They can be halflings, and we haven't had a halfling as well, or a dwarf. They can be halflings and half elves. Remember? So we've got a human-centric party. Okay. So shall we? We don't have to do multi-class. Multi-class determined using the tables of. So these are pure class, which is nice. Class and alignment restrictions must be applied. So alignment. Before we do alignment, shall we do the names of these characters, or should we do the origin? Yeah, let's do the origin first, because that might determine what the name is. Because say we roll up that like a Nordic type person, they'll want to have a kind of Nordic name. They won't want to have. I've quite often used. I've kind of things like Fredegar and Dagobert, and Thudibert. They're actually drawn from Merovingian, Frankish names. So if you go to like France, before they had like the Normans and the kind of the medieval period, they had a tribe called the Franks that were in control, and their first incarnation were the Merovingians, and their big thing was Clovis, and he defeated the Moors at the Battle of I can't remember where it is, and after that their dynasty went on for a few centuries, and then the Carolingians, who I suppose the poster boy of the Carolingians is Charlemagne. They came through in the I think it was the 8th century and 9th century, and so I've used names from them for that's where these Dagoberts and Fredegards come from. And I was planning just to use that as a kind of just the basic for the area, because they are quite interesting really. And I would probably use that for some of these as well. And I've got like a little hit list of names that I can use. And then I've got my little Tolkien ones too that I've made a note of, and they're in here in my folder. But why don't we do the what was I going to decide? Oh yes, origin. Yes. So the origin, remember when we were doing our characters, I had this idea that we could maybe use this table here, which gave you an idea of how far away things were. Now, this would, I think, with hindsight, I think that maybe this generates people that are far too local. So we had Dagobert and Tristan. So we had Tristan actually here, because he generated a labyrinth of caves found in Lair. So it was almost in Marchton. And then we had Dagobert. He was 5 to 8 miles distant. So I think what we should do is maybe try to emphasize that characters are from further afield. And I would say that instead of having, we're not going to have any locals anymore. We're going to have either outdoors, 10 to 40 miles. So that would be like in the kingdom, or we're going to have foreigners. And the split seems to be on that is that's 30 and that's 10. So that is 1 to 3. It's in the kingdom, and then 4, we have someone that is from a more exotic location. So I think that's what we'll use for these particular ones, because they're not player characters. Well, not player characters yet. I think that's what we should use for them. So For our female magic user, let's get our D4 out. And she is from the kingdom. So we can put, let's put that down here. Origin, put feudal, kingdom. And the assumption, because she is like a magic user, maybe she's come from a city or a town. Because, you know, she's probably been involved in, under a wizard or a magic user. And she's served as an apprentice. And they tend to be from, tend to center themselves in population centers. And the obvious place would be, you know, like the capital or one of the larger regional, provincial cities or towns. So she is, so that kind of fits the bill all right for her. She's from a civilized society. The human cleric, he is 3, so his origin is feudal and the kingdom. And our druids, well, we haven't actually, we haven't done it for these guys. So let's do it for them as well, for Baldur and Malor. Now the assumption with the druids is that they are from a more the Celtic equivalent society in our in our Milu or Milu. And they are specifically related to a certain cultural group. And I have got in my map and in my head, I have got the Celtic region as being far more over to. So we've got the Northman Nordic culture up here. We've got Elfheim up here with the elves, who are quite a kind of Nordic type. And then I would say that the Celtic area, the Celtic fringe, where the druids come from and that type of thing, and probably the monks too, because remember we talked about monks, and I said I'd much rather have a kind of a Celtic mysticism for the monks. So monks and druids of, you know, specific classes come from the east. So if we generate the you know, if we're going to have a druid, they're going to come from this region here. So we don't actually have to generate them. They're not going to come from a Nordic, you know, we're not going to have Nordic druids. We're not going to have druids from the kingdom. We're always going to have druids from maybe it extends down into the south as well. So the south and the west. Oh, I'm saying the east. This is the west. The east, yeah, over there. The west. So the men of the west. That's quite a grand thing. So we know about them, this one, and we know about them because his origin will be the west. And his origin, if we can put him in, he has an origin, he's the west. And the only one we haven't done is Baldur Bloodfist. So where's he from, this half-elf? He's a 4. He's exotic. he is what did we have as our little table? Trust Baldur to be a bit. You remember we had a little backstory for Baldur when we were going on about his foul and barbaric temperament. And we came up with all these things about, like, it was almost like a kind of, he had elven father and human mother, and they were ambushed, and he was sold into brigandage, and I don't know, it was all that sort of stuff, and a bit like kind of Oliver, and he joined a group of thieves. So maybe this is all coming to fruition. So he's going to be 50 to 500 miles distance. So that is 50 to 500 is almost like a 1 to 10 divided by 2 times 15. Yeah, let's do that. 1 to 10 divided by 2. Ooh. 1 to 10 divided by 2. Or is it? No, it's just it's a 1 to 10 times 50, isn't it? Yeah. So 7 times, that's 350 miles away. Okay, good. So he's 350 miles away. Origin, 350 miles. And what direction? Because we had this thing on the compass. Is it north? Yeah. How many is that? That's 1. That's like an octagon, isn't it? So that's 8. 8 faces. So that is north, west, east. So that's south, southeast. Southeast. So that places him 350 miles away. So that's way, way down here. Well, either into the heart of the kingdom or even beyond the kingdom and towards the south. So we're getting into maybe more exotic type climate, maybe more of a kind of, 350 miles away. If we're from Scotland, that takes me down to the south of England. So on the continent, that would be maybe like northern France, maybe like France, northern Germany. So it's not anything that you would classify. He looks kind of Mediterranean, looks a bit Italian or Spanish. He's probably still. So we'll say that he is the southern part of this kingdom, or one of the other, either client states or another feudal kingdom that's part of the, maybe a trading group or something. There's a group of cities that are allied. We haven't really worked out the geopolitical kind of setup of this setting yet, but we can kind of surmise that he is from one of the feudal polities to the south. So our origins are all pretty straightforward. We've got our druids from the west, men of the west. We've got our magic user from the kingdom. We've got our cleric from the kingdom, and we've got Baldur, who's probably the most exotic. He's from one of the far kingdoms, maybe one of the city states to the south. Okay, good. How about some names? We've got, let's see, let's just underline these so we can make them a bit more distinctive. Our magic user, I jotted down some names for her. Iolitha, Adelind, Helinda, and Fidela. I'm minded to any of those, really. Let's just put it down to chance. So this is our first female character. So this is quite, why not? We've got 4 fantastic names to choose from. Let's just do it randomly. So we have a 2. Adelind. Yes, Adelind sounds good. Adelind the something. Adelind the white. Adelind the great. Adelind the kind. And this is where we can actually do our little bit of character magic, and we can do alignment as well. Now alignment is interesting because remember we talked about in one of our first ones that the prevailing alignment of this region is lawful and neutral, and the variations to that are very limited. However, characters and whatever they can maybe just veer slightly off the path. We're not really talking about groups, so maybe say a lawful evil. We're probably not going to have a lawful evil, but we might have and maybe the most extreme, we might have a chaotic neutral. You know, they are hard characters to deal with anyhow in a party, and they're always going to be a wild card. So I would say that what we need to do with the alignments is to just sanitize it. And there's an alignment thing in the person. And in fact, let's get onto the personalities. We'll do the personality. This is what you've all been waiting for, probably. We've done it for Baldur, we've done it for Malor. Let's do it for these other ones. And we'll come back to alignment at the end, because that might shape, the alignment might have been shaped by the personality. So for our female, for Adelind, let's see, we just do a general tendency and we do a personality. So the general tendency is a D12 and a D6. So a D12 and a D6. So that is, we add 12 to that, that's 14. Ooh, so Adelind, yeah, see this? Perceptive. She is perceptive. So we have a trait, perceptive, the same as Fredigar. She is far-seeing, mysterious, far-seeing. And personality is a D8 and a D8. So where's my D8? Oh, here it is, yeah. D8. So she is an average personality, not an extrovert or introvert. And she is 4. She's aloof. Okay. Well, the druid was aloof too. It's not, maybe she's just a bit, maybe she's from an aristocracy, or she's from a high family, and she finds it difficult maybe to mix with some of these more commoners. She's finding it hard out in the general world to deal with things like that. Or she could just really be, that's just what she's like. She is quite haughty, and I think there is haughty and there's aloof. There's various levels of detachment, and some can be quite insulting, and others can be just, maybe you're just a bit kind of mysterious. You're aloof. You're not quite, and that would kind of come in with the overall persona of her being quite a mysterious type of magic user. Not a femme fatale, but maybe someone that is really quite, she's very focused on her studies and her work, and she has this kind of this mind that can kind of ascend to a higher level that other people can't really, maybe they just can't relate to her. Okay, and let's have the cleric. And the cleric, for all we know, is just a down-to-earth, I think Dagobert had a rather poor opinion of this cleric. He was saying, one of these soft Alaron types. I was thinking, if I did generate a female cleric, there is probably a cult, there's probably like a fertility goddess or goddess in the pantheon, that has specifically a female constituency, but that's not going to apply here because we've actually got a male. So we have a D12 so we'll have general traits first. We have D12 and a D6. So that is a 12. So a 12 he is suspicious, cautious. And what was it we said about the first things? We said that if you got the slash, some tendencies have 2 listings separated by a slash. The DM should either immediately select one or list both and select the one better suited to the NPC when the balance of the other traits are determined. All right, so let's just go for suspicious, cautious now. His trait. Suspicious, cautious. And let's see what his personality is. And he has a personality of 2 D8s. He's got 7, so he is extroverted, which I suppose for a cleric is a good thing. Overbearing. Okay. So he's just a bit, he likes to, he's right in your face. So I would say probably he's not going to be maybe cautious. He might be a bit more suspicious. I think that's probably a trait. Let's weight it. We'll say 1 to 6 it's suspicious, and 7 to 10 it's cautious. So yeah, he is suspicious. Okay, good. So that's that decided. And then our druid, who has a trait and a personality. So our druid is a 9, which is curious, inquisitive. Okay, that's good. That's what you want in an adventure. Inquis. And his personality is 2d8s. He is an average, and he is egoist, arrogant. Okay, egoist, arrogant. Okay, we'll keep them just the 2 just now and see how he kind of shakes out. So that's done all our personalities. Names for the men. I kept Carloman back because I quite fancy that for a fighter. I think that's a kind of fighter name. I've got Childrick, Tibbert, Clothar. I think he sounds like a Tibbert, doesn't he? Tibbert. That sounds right. Father Tibbert. And Clothar or Childeric. Does Childeric sound a bit... Let's do it 1 to 3, it's Clothar. No, it's Childeric, so he's Childeric. And I'll obviously do like the what their surnames are, like Golden Leaf and all that type of thing. I can do that for the next thing. Right, I think one last thing I'll do is just do a quick kind of test on their alignment and see whether we reject. And then what we do with the alignment thing is we roll it, and then we kind of force it into the mold that we want. We take the nearest aspect and either entrench it based on the prevailing one, or I suppose ignore it. So Baldor is our first one. He gets a D10. He's a 5, which is chaotic evil. So he's going to be a chaotic. We'll have to make him chaotic neutral, I would say. So does that the reason why it's such a hard? Maybe this is what we do. Maybe we do have a chaotic neutral. And because he is an adventurer, he's an interloper. He's come in, and he's causing. Maybe he's going to cause the trouble. And maybe this is maybe a reason why, not only with his barbaric nature, but the fact that his alignment is chaotic neutral, he can't hold this party together, and he's finding it difficult. And he has to use these kind of methods that Adelind and Tibbet and Childrick are finding distasteful, and even Malar, who has known him the longest, and they're not. They are starting to maybe lose confidence in him. Think about the adventure. Maybe when we're talking to some of these people in the Green Dragon, they might be alluding to the fact that Baldor, he kept on making mistakes. They didn't really get through to the Sturges. They couldn't even get through the secret door. And all they did was curse and blame like Dagobert and Tristan and Lindris and saying, oh, they didn't give me the right directions and it's all their fault and, it's nothing to do with me type stuff. And the chaotic neutral would probably do that type of thing. I'm not taking responsibility for anything. It's all their fault, that type of stuff. So I'm just going to do this from left field and have an alignment, and he's chaotic neutral. That is quite interesting, isn't it? And we know that Druids are always neutral, which is easy. So Adelind, let's see what Adelind's like. Just on a raw score. And I'm looking at the time, and I think once we've done these two alignments, we'll just call it a day for this session. She's a 9. So that's actually a neutral. She's neutral. Okay. She's even more mysterious now. She's become quite enigmatic. She's got an enigmatic alignment. She's got some enigmatic characteristics. I think she might be the prime candidate for us to try and recruit. You know, this type of magic user. And I bet she's got, you know, some of her, like, her intelligence, and maybe she's got a very high charisma. And we could use her as the person that interacts with people. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Yeah. Okay. This is looking more interesting by the second. And we've got Tibert, the cleric. So I would say that he almost has to be either a lawful good or a lawful neutral. But let's see what happens. So we get lawful neutral. Yes. In that case, he might be Bane, or he might be another aspect of the church that has a lawful neutral kind of bent to it. Okay, I think that was quite an interesting little session. The way I'm going to use this as a springboard is that I'm going to have these characters. They're all going to congregate in the Green Dragon, and we're going to have an interaction with some of them. And I think the basic motivation of Party A, which is our player characters, is that they really want to try and recruit another, or if possible, maybe 2, but at least one other. And I think with their interactions, now that we know more about this group now, they kind of almost like struck a kind of liking for Adelind, and they found that these others who are a bit overbearing, none of them are really kind of like people, because he's barbaric, he's aloof, and he's nice, but he's aloof. She's quite detached. He's overbearing, and he's arrogant. So they're not exactly like your like the people you want to be hanging around with in a party. Whereas Adelind is probably the most in terms of having a recruit for the party, she's probably the highest on their list. Let's see if that's confirmed in our next session. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.